after this. Note taking, you don't have to worry about taking notes. You can if you want to, but I'm going to be sending out the recording as well as the slide deck afterwards. So with that said, I'll go ahead and get started. One thing that I wanted to share in addition to that this is being recorded and I'll send out the slide deck is that also this is a crash course. So there's going to be some areas in this topic for marketing that might seem very basic or obvious or that you've done before. And there might be other parts in here that might seem extremely technical, that might be over some people's heads, and that's okay. It's going to be a wide range. I tried to throw a little bit in here for everyone. So if you have any questions, like I said, there'll be a Q&A at the end. Feel free to jump in with the Q&A and we can kind of talk through some of those items. But I'm going to go ahead and get started and we'll get going here. All right, so to kick things off real quick, just wanted to share a little bit about myself. So my name's Adam Kuda. I'm the Director of Marketing here at AlohaABA. I've been in marketing for a little over 12 years, and I've got 7 years of those focused specifically in autism therapy and ABA. I've worked for providers throughout the US, as well as in Asia and Australia to help expand services and reach more families. So for all of you here, whether you're looking to like fill up a brand new therapy center that you're just opening, if you're trying to just keep your staff's caseload steady, or if any of you haven't even started your own practice yet, or you're looking for your very first clients, my goal here is to share some of the insights that I've learned along the way to help you meet those goals. Also, I know there's a handful of you in here who I've worked with before or know personally, but I also just wanted to share, for those of you who don't know me, I'm also the parent of a child on the spectrum. And I wouldn't want to miss the opportunity to just say thank you to everyone here for everything that you do. And it's my pleasure to be able to give something back to you all and hopefully share some insight as well and help you out today. All right, so let's get started with marketing. So in this guide, we're going to cover some of the key areas of ABA marketing. We'll talk about how to build a brand and reach families using both paid and organic marketing. And then we'll also talk about the importance of building a strong referral network. And then also importantly, how to effectively track your results over time. So one of the most important things that you do in marketing is not just the marketing itself, but it's the tracking on the back end so you can constantly be improving moving forward. So first up, first things first is the branding and the content. So branding isn't just about your logo, it's about communicating who you are to your audience. It's what makes you memorable and it's what helps build trust with the families and the clients that you serve. So content is going to be huge here. It's all about creating something that's valuable and engaging and informative, and it speaks directly to your audience, who are the parents that are looking for ABA services. And good quality content is going to show that you understand their challenges and that you're there to offer solutions. And so what I want to talk about is how do we do that? How do we create good content that's engaging, builds trust, and then calls people to action? So this is the framework that I love to use. It's called the hero's journey. And again, for some of those of you that know me or have worked with me in the past, you've probably heard this before, but for some of you, it might be new, but it's something I really am a strong believer in. So you may or may not know the name, but you for sure know the concept. You're familiar with the layout of it, even if you don't know that you are. So the hero's journey is a storytelling framework that is the underlying structure of all the great stories that you and I know. So there's Luke Skywalker wanting to become a Jedi. There's Katniss Everdeen in the Hunger Games. Any story you can think of, Lord of the Rings, any type of epic journey with a hero is going to follow this same idea. So it goes something like this. There is a hero who has a problem or need, and they meet a mentor or a guide who calls them to action, and that leads to that hero's success. And so this framework isn't just for movies and stories, it's a tool that marketers and businesses use to connect to their audience. But to do that, the most important thing that we have to do as business owners and people who are trying to share a message is we have to focus on step one, and that is to stop putting ourselves as the hero in the journey. We're not the hero in this journey. We have to understand that we play a different role here. So when a family is coming to your website, they're not looking for a hero. They're looking for a guide, is what they're looking for. And I'll give you a few examples. And while I do this, I would just suggest that maybe you pull up your website or if you have a brochure or some type of marketing copy that you have easily handy, take a look at it while we talk through this. A common mistake that I see a lot is focusing too heavily on services in the opening. So you'd see a lot of words like me, we, I, us. You'd see some type of that approach right in the first few sentences. So for example, if one of the first sentences on your website says something like, we provide ABA therapy. Our ABA therapy programs utilize evidence-based practices, and I am highly qualified, I'm a BCBA. I would suggest changing that. I would suggest definitely taking a look at this approach as we go through it. So while all of that information is important for you to share, it skips over the important steps of step 1 and 2. And it goes right into a story about you, which is step 3 when they meet that guide. So by doing this, it doesn't connect emotionally with those parents and clients that you're trying to serve, and you're going to lose them before you have that draw to connect them, and you're going to lose them right out of the gate. So instead, I would suggest trying something, that might sound more like, your child deserves the best start possible. Don't let wait lists and insurance roadblocks stand in the way of the services they need. Our team is committed to providing XYZ, and then you go on and tell them a little bit about yourself. And it doesn't have to say exactly those words. You can change it up and make it your own, obviously, but it's the general idea is that we're starting with the parents' needs first, giving them the mental check mark to know that I'm in the right spot. This person understands me. That is the need that I have, or my problem that I'm struggling with right now. And then you go into positioning yourself as the guide after that. So first they have to know that they're in the right place, that you understand where they're coming from, and then they will be able to see you as the guide in their journey. And so by understanding and applying the hero's journey, you can create copy that it doesn't just inform, but it really inspires them. And then later, as you can see, it calls them to action. So that's when you start to ask for that call to action and them to submit an intake form or them to give you a call and reach out, because then you've established that understanding of the problem and that trust as a mentor. So again, I highly suggest step 1 for your content is you take some time to look at your websites, your brochures, and anywhere else that you're sharing your story. And as you do that, remember this framework. One thing I would say is that I could talk about the hero's journey. That could probably be an entire presentation, but I won't do that. But if you're interested in learning more, I would suggest checking out a book that I've read several times and I'm a big fan of. It's Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. And it has great resources, which I have on the screen, where it walks you through the entire framework, and it'll ask you sentence by sentence, about your services, your offerings, who your customers or your clients are, and it will build that story for you and help you really build something that's engaging and is effective. Okay, so moving on, I'm going to talk about digital marketing, and this includes everything online. So obviously digital marketing, anything online. So it's your website, Google, social media, emails, blogs, all of the above. So now that we understand the hero's journey, the next question is, how do we deploy it? How do we use it? Emails and blogs come to mind first, obviously website content, but emails and blogs are first. And they help you stay in touch with families. And so from anybody who's shown interest, it could be somebody who reached out and maybe they fell away from that intake process, or maybe it's somebody that has moved forward, but you have them on a wait list. And from my experience, sometimes those families can, they're looking for other services. Like I said, I'm a parent myself, and if I'm on a long enough wait list, I'm going to be seeking out other services to do what's best for my child. So one important thing that you should be doing is staying connected. So whether it is, even an active client or somebody who's on a wait list or somebody who's requested services but then fell away, maintaining contact with them is so important. So one of the great ways that you can do this is through emails. You can share content with them like blogs or podcasts, anything that helps, one, provide them with helpful information and also keeps you top of mind. One tip that I would suggest here is I personally like to use tools like Canva or MailChimp because they just make things super easy to create professional looking templates for emails, newsletters, any type of artwork that you need. And it also gives you tips for, MailChimp does, effective subject lines. It'll show you your open rates, your click-through rates. It'll give you suggestions as far as like your text and your ad copy based off of what has worked for you in the past or for others. It'll suggest the best times to send information based off when people open it. So I would definitely suggest doing that. So if you are currently sending out content, maybe you're using like Microsoft Word or Paint or something like that, or something that it can kind of be a little challenging and you're trying to get everything to organize just right, or you're spending a lot of time on your templates, I would check out something like Canva. They have free options where you can go and utilize an auto-generated template. You can just add some color schemes to match your brand, and then you can send it off and you'll be on your way. So I think that's a great resource if anyone's looking for something like that. All right, so let's talk about search. I'm sure most of you are at least generally familiar, but here's a quick rundown of how search is organized. You're going to have your ads typically at the top of the page, followed by a local listing in the map section below that. And then at the bottom, you're going to have your organic results, or the free section of Google that you can't pay to be in, but you get there by ranking, meeting the search algorithm criteria that Google and other search engines set. You meet that standard and they rank you appropriately. So we're going to start with the bottom section, the organic results section. So right off the bat, what I would say is keep in mind that effective marketing is all about the user experience. So again, I would say let's do a quick exercise. And if you still have your website up, that's perfect. And I would just pretend that you're a parent. Put yourself in the mindset of a parent. And then imagine that you've landed on your website. So first, let's just go through like a run through of things that I would say as a marketer if I'm just taking an audit of your site. So I would say, did your site load quickly? No more than 2 seconds, but really anything that doesn't feel almost instant is too long. It should feel almost instant, right? When you search your website, it should pop. And then the next couple are without scrolling down. So don't scroll down, say at the very top of your page. Can you tell what services that you offer immediately just by skimming? In a 1 to 2 second quick skim, can you tell what services are offered? If not, I would make sure that those services are front and center. It should be obvious to a parent right when they land on there that they're in the right spot. They shouldn't have to scroll halfway down through a page to start to see services. Also, top of the page without scrolling is your phone number, or a consultation request form button or something like that. Is it easy to find without scrolling down? If not, I would prioritize making that highly accessible. In marketing, we call that top of the fold. It should be at the top of the page without scrolling down. That's the information that you should see. I should see a way to contact you, what your services are about, maybe like a form fill or phone. I should be able to see those things immediately. The next thing, if you passed all of those, the next thing that I would focus on is your visuals. Does your site look professional? And most importantly, does it look professional on different device types? So people are going to be coming from all different device types. I have an iPhone. Some people might be on a laptop right now. Some people might be on a desktop with different screen monitor sizes. So you want to make sure that your website doesn't just look good on the device that you're used to working on, but you should be checking different device types, phones, laptops, iPads. You should be making sure that it's dynamic and adjust to those screen sizes. Let's see, images and videos. What I would say is, on top, while we're talking about images, if possible, I know it's challenging in ABA, but I would try to use as many authentic pictures as possible and as few stock photos as possible. So I know when I was a parent starting out services, I saw a ton of stock photos, and it was hard for me to know, especially if you're in-home services, there's not a building, there's not a picture of a real person. I'm going to be trusting this person to come into my home for it feels very personal. So if you can get a few pictures of the staff, or have a building getting a picture of the center or something like that, just anything to show some legitimacy and build some trust will be helpful if possible. I know there's some limitations with the ethics guidelines of obviously not using pictures of your clients, or sometimes I think even you can't use people who are receiving supervision hours, but in any way possible, I would try and get some photos in there. Next, I would say, is your site easy to navigate? You want the navigation menu and links to guide visitors easily through your site without it causing them frustration. So it shouldn't be this endless loop, or things should function the way that you would expect them to as a user. So just take a minute, kind of run through your site and make sure that it's working as you would expect. And then finally, your site should be a valuable resource. So again, going back to that hero's journey, you should be creating quality content. And what Google measures as quality content is no less than 300 words on a page. And I would say, if it's like your homepage or your About Us page, you should be looking well over 500, 750, even 1,000 if it's like a really highly important page. You don't have to go crazy. You don't have to write, 10-page essays or anything like that, but you should definitely not have 1 or 2 sentences on any of your pages. It should have some robust content on there for the search engines to pull from. And one thing that I would say, now that we're in 2024, it's becoming more widely used. I would avoid using ChatGPT for this. It's okay for it to give you some bulleted ideas or some things for you to kind of brainstorm off of, but I would not have it write the entire page for you. That's going to be obvious to search engines. And if they haven't already, they're going to start cracking down on those things and punishing AI content because they're looking for genuine content that resonates with people. So I would avoid just taking the easy way out, and I would write some real content yourself. Okay. So that was a bit of rapid fire. It's kind of all over there. So I'm going to take a look at those ideas and talk about what they actually mean. So when we're talking about SEO, we're actually dividing them into 3 main categories. There's on-page SEO, there is off-page SEO, and there's technical SEO. And I'm going to go into each one of these 3. So I'm going to go through those bullets here on the next slide. So the first one is your on-page SEO. This is probably the one that you're most familiar with as a user and reader and visitor of websites. This is things like keywords, meta tags, which might sound really technical and complicated, but you're probably more familiar than you think you are. There's internal linking from one page to another, and then there's the content and other factors that both Google and other search engines and website visitors want to see. So let's look at what some of those things actually mean. So meta titles and meta descriptions are 2 of the most important factors for SEO, and they tell both Google and users what your page is about. So when you look on the right side of the screen, you've seen this before. Obviously, this is just a Google search result page for best camping bag. You can see at the top where it says meta title, that's just the title of the page. That's telling you, it's giving you and Google a signal of what this page is going to be about. And then you have the paragraphs or the sentence or 2 below each one of those title tags. It's called the meta description. So you want to make sure that it's easy for search engines and your readers to understand what the content is about. But also, again, don't forget that meta titles and descriptions, they're written for people. So you want to make sure that not only are they have your keywords in them that you're searching for. So this might, for you, say ABA therapy St. Louis, or in-home ABA therapy services near, I'm in Baldwin, Missouri. So maybe that's what you're going to say. Or maybe it's center-based therapy, or ABA therapy now accepting Medicaid, or whatever you want that title to be. But you don't want to overstuff your keywords. You don't want to try and just trick Google into giving you the top ranking because of the keywords, because then you kind of tricked yourself, because no one's going to click on it. It's going to sound very generic, very robotic. And then Google's going to eventually catch up to that, and they're going to punish it because no one's clicking on it, and they see it as a bad indicator that it's poor content. So you have to find that balance between the 2. On the left, real quick, what I would say is this is what it looks like, whether you're doing your website yourself or you have a web developer or a marketing person. On the left is what they're going to see on the back end of the site. So they're going to see a spot for page title. You can see how it says 10 best backpacking backpacks of 2021 - clever hiker. It matches exactly what you're going to see on the right in the search engine. Same thing for the meta description. You're putting at the bottom of the page what this page is generally about, and that's going to show up in the search results. So you're just dropping those in there, and then that's what Google is feeding into the search results. So we also want to put our keywords in other places, not just the titles and the descriptions, but we want to put them on the pages as well. So you're going to see on the screen, you're going to see I have the H1, which is like your main heading. This is the most important place to have a keyword on the page. So if this page is about something, you want that keyword to be somewhere in your A1 header. And then you also want it to be sprinkled through the body of your text. And then there's a couple other places that you can't even really see as the user, and that's going to be in the image. You can actually name your images. So Google appreciates and will better serve you up if your image isn't picture 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Your picture should be, ABA therapy at Aloha, or whatever that picture is, whatever's happening, that picture is how you should name it. And that helps Google recognize it. It helps people with, who can't see the image. It helps them with the auditory reading of what that image is about. And Google appreciates both of those things, and it will serve those images up higher in Google Images, and again, give you better results and better tracking. What I would say is for the keyword density, like how often how much is too much? What is Google like? What do they not like? I would say definitely try and make sure it's in your H1. It should for sure be there. And then when you're talking about the body of text, I would shoot for 1 to 2%, not total keywords, but 1 to 2% of your keyword count should be your keyword. So if you have 100 words on a page, you should be using your keyword 1 time. If you have 500 words, you should be using your keyword roughly 5 times. So that's just a general rule of thumb, depending on how robust that page is and how often that keyword should be there. Here's generally what it looks like when I'm calling it out. So you can see, obviously, the keywords are in the H1, they're in the body. You've got some internal linking there in green. So you can see how I wrote like billing and scheduling. That's going to link to another page. So if you're on your home page, you're talking about in-home versus center or different cities or your intake process, you want to be linking those pages to each other. And this is, it helps Google navigate your site. And it's also why they call it the web. It's because the pages should be interconnected with each other. It helps Google's, they call them crawlers. They crawl through your page to read these titles and read these keywords. And they crawl from page to page to page. And the best way to help them navigate is by interlinking those pages together. That way Google can read it more efficiently and more effectively. So definitely don't forget about internal linking. It's a big one. The last thing that I'll say is that kind of talked about this a little bit, and you can see in this image when I pull it through, I've gone in here and I've done a right click over the image and I inspected this image. And then you can see that it's named here. So it's ABA Practice Management Software. So it's not just a random number for this image. I'm actually putting in keywords into my file of the name of my picture. You can also see some technical things happening here for SEO, and that is the file size. So you'll notice this is a very small file size, which is really important. We'll get into that in a second. But you don't want to have 100, megabit size files. You want them to be as compressed and small as possible, and that makes sure that your site doesn't get bogged down. When we're talking about that 1 to 2 second load speed, the smallest file possible is what you want on your website. That way it loads immediately and it's not being bogged down by these large uncompressed files. Also, as I mentioned earlier, looking at your website on multiple screen sizes, there's also a helpful tip so you don't have to run around looking for 20 different devices. Sorry if anyone did that during the 5 minutes since I mentioned it, but you can also just right click on any piece of text and you can click on the inspect item at the bottom. And then you'll see in the right screenshot, there is a dimension responsive dropdown. And you can select any version through desktop, iPhone, Android, iPad, anything, and it'll show you what your website would look like on that device type. So it's a really helpful tool just to make sure that everything does look as it should. Okay, so moving on to off-page SEO, this includes strategies. It's things like backlinks, social media signals, guest blogging, online reputation management. And this is how your site builds authority and visibility beyond your own site. So it's how other sites interact and engage with you. So it's kind of like getting a referral from other sites. What I would say is, of these things, they can be very, complex. The most important and most impactful one that's something that we can discuss here today that I can definitely give you some helpful tips is the backlinking. You can do backlinking strategies on your own. It's obviously good to have somebody who is a professional in SEO do this, but there's certainly things that you can do yourself. So what I would say is focus on the quality of the backlinks instead of the quantity of the backlinks. So a backlink, for example, might be you having a listing on the Autism Society directory or Autism Speaks, or maybe it's a parent magazine, or a place on the Better Business Bureau or your local school district or something like that. Or maybe you've done a webinar cross post with another organization and they've linked your website onto theirs. So what Google is seeing is, think about it like you're the new kid in school, and the most popular kid in school says, yes, I know them, they're fantastic, I love it. It's getting that authority from those other known websites that Google trusts and respects to give you that vote of confidence. And then Google says, well, if you're linked on all of these other very reputable sites that I've already vetted, then you must have some type of quality reputation as well. And so I should be serving you up higher. Obviously, your content is good. So that's the one thing that I would say is find those directories, find those reputable places, don't focus on just, anywhere that you can put your link. Make sure that they're relevant to the space. Make sure that they're credible or authoritative. Those are going to be the quality ones that you're looking for that will actually make a difference in your rankings. I know I mentioned 3, but unofficially there is, kind of a hybrid of this one, enough where I wanted to talk about it really quick. Its own version of SEO, and that's local SEO. So local SEO is really crucial for businesses that are targeting a specific area. And this really applies to pretty much everybody here. So the first thing that you just want to do is just claim your business. If you haven't already, go out to Google My Business, go out to Google search for your business. There'll be a little button you can click claim my business, and then just fill in all of the details. Get your address, your phone number, your service hours, and photos. One thing about addresses is if you are a 100% in-home provider, you don't have to put an address. So I know sometimes I see in some of the Facebook threads, people are not sure, I think for insurance purposes or maybe something that you have to put an address to get in there, and people are worried about using their home. You don't have to put an address on Google My Business. You can say that you are a service, a remote service provider, and you can just leave it blank and they're totally fine with that. So, but if you have an address of the building, definitely put it in there. And then also it's important to call out, you want to make sure that they call it the NAP. It is your name, address, and phone number, and it should be consistent across all sites. So when you Google your name, you're going to see everywhere that you're listed. You're going to see Yellow Pages, Manta, Better Business Bureau. Obviously, you're going to see, maybe like these resource sites that we're talking about, and you will likely see variations of your name. And so it's really important that you go in there, you claim those listings, and you tighten them up. So for example, if I had a business called Adams ABA LLC, that's not the same as Adams ABA L period C period. We understand that it's the same thing, but Google sees that as a totally different set of ones and zeros and codes. It is not the same thing to them, and they see it as totally different businesses. So what you want to make sure that you're doing is it should be like a rubber stamp. It should be the exact same address, the exact same business name, the exact same phone address. So again, things like address, whether you're using road, ROAD, or RD, or RD period, it should be exactly the same. So it's really important. I can't stress that enough. So I would take the time to Google your business, see what results pop up, and then take the day, clean it up. It'll make a big difference, actually. So it's a simple thing that anyone can do, and it's very impactful. So I would do that for sure. All right, so let's talk about paid ads. Let's start with some of the basics. There is a difference. They sound similar, but there's a difference between search engine ads and social media ads. They serve 2 totally different purposes. On search engines like Google or Bing, you are targeting people who are actively looking for your services through pay-per-click. Your goal here is simple. It's to be at the top of the page and have a clear, compelling message and get people who are searching for your services to click on you. That's your goal for search ads. This is done through keyword targeting, which we'll talk about, competitive bidding, and a really strong call to action to entice them to click on you. But on social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and other places, it's a different approach. They're not actively searching for you. Instead, you are coming to the user, your potential family or client. They're not searching for your services. In fact, they might not even know that your services exist yet. So here, your goal is different. It's to break into their bubble and introduce your message to them, to build brand awareness and to then generate leads or generate awareness. So this requires visual storytelling to capture their attention and engage your target audience. So just keep in mind when you're creating the ad content that whatever you're doing on pay-per-click and search is not the same strategy and same approach of what you're doing on social media, where you're engaging people who are not searching for you. So keep that in mind when you're writing content and making ads. So I'm just going to run through a few tips. I think that's probably the most helpful thing that I can do here, since obviously we can't talk about how to build an entire comprehensive ad campaign, the little bit of time we have. So I'm going to give you some tips. My first tip is to use tools like Google Keyword Planner. And this tool is really great because it takes a lot of the guesswork out of finding the right keyword. So one of the hardest things you can do in marketing is trying to know what people are searching for and which ones you should bid on and how much. And so with the Google Keyword Planner tool, you can actually see what people are searching for. how often they're searching for it, and how tough it might be for you to rank for that term. So think of it as like a sneak peek into your audience's search habits, and all the data that comes back. And I know, having a virtual room full of BCBAs, and how much you all love data, this is probably going to be like right up your alley. You're probably going to love to see some of these insights. So highly recommend using that tool if you're planning on running any type of paid campaign. All right, tip number 2, I would start small. Start with a small budget. So this lets you test out your ads, make sure that they're well optimized and performing well before you start throwing a lot of money at it. Google can get very expensive very quickly. And the last thing that you want to do is not know what you're doing and put all of your money in it all at one time. So that's a bad idea, bad approach. I would not recommend it. But start small, enough money to get some data, see which keywords seem to be performing, how well your ads are performing, if you need to update your keywords. But I would start with a very small budget, check your, and then from there, once you feel like you've got those ads right, you see that red box on the right that I've highlighted, you want to then check your impression share in in Google Ads. So go to again, this is being recorded, so you don't have to scribble down the notes, but what you're going to do is you're going to go to the campaigns tab. You're going to click on the columns, and you're going to add the impression share metric. And what this will tell you is it will tell you of all the searches that somebody has done for that keyword, and all the times that some ad has served up, whether it's yours or somebody else, what percentage of the time are you serving up? So this will show the opportunity that you had to be clicked on. And so what I would say is that once you feel confident that your ads are performing well, and now it's just a matter of spending more if there's more opportunity out there, you want to shoot for a 50% or higher impression share. So if your impression share is 10, 15, 20%, and you can take on more clients and you have a budget that you want to serve up, that's a signal that you can increase your budget, and there's more opportunity out there for you to capture. So I would shoot for something around 50%, so long obviously as your budget can allow for it. Obviously don't overspend in here just to try and hit 50, but if you have it available, 50 is a good benchmark that you should be shooting for. All right, tip number 3, I would say, is to organize your account with a structure similar to what I have on the side. And this might just seem like good housekeeping, but it's actually really important to get more leads at a lower cost. So I wouldn't overlook this one. It'll make it easier, certainly, for you to manage, but like I said, it improves your optimization scores, which is really important. That's what Google's looking for, is like high relevant keywords for ad copy. So your account name would be at the top. That'd likely be your business. That's there in green. And then you'd see, campaigns 1 and 2, which I have in blue. For example, that might be like if you have multiple locations, multiple centers, or if you do, different states or countries or whatever it might be. If that doesn't apply to you, it's okay to have one account name and one campaign. That's okay. Where it really starts to get different is you want to make sure that you certainly have ad groups, multiple ad groups, and that's what's in yellow, and then the keywords and ads themselves are in gray. So the ad groups are very important. So for this example, I have in-home and center-based on the left. On the right, I might have like my like fine motor, toilet training, gross motor, social skills groups, communication or language. You want to have those ad groups broken out separately. And what that does is it allows you to get really specific on those keywords, really specific on those individual ads, and then really specific on what page you're going to send that ad to, because you can only send one ad group to one URL. And so what you don't want is you don't want keywords for communication and fine motor and toilet training and center-based, and you don't want all of those keywords scrambled up together, all going to your home page. You want keywords for in-home going to an in-home page, keywords for center-based going to a center-based page. You want the ads to be talking about just that one thing, just in-home or center-based or toilet training or fine motor. You want them to be very tight and aligned, and that will give you a much higher quality score for that keyword, which is a multiplier. It's kind of complex the way it works, but what I would just say is there's a multiplier where they want to see a really high quality score that matches that ad group, matches your keyword, matches your ad, matches your landing page. They're all in a line. And then that gives you a high quality score, and Google will drop your price significantly on how much they're going to charge you to bid on that keyword. So the more aligned you can get it, the higher your quality score, the lower the cost, and the more leads you get for a lower budget. So super, super important. It's one of the foundational things that if you're not doing, would definitely check and clean this up. If it will be helpful if you're not doing it. All right, so when it comes to running paid ads on Facebook, I'm going to run through these a little bit more quickly because some of them are a little more familiar since a lot of us use social media, so we see these things. But you want to make sure that you're creating engaging visuals that have compelling narratives. So I think that's probably pretty obvious to all of us, is that we scroll a lot. We scroll past probably more than we realize. It's important to have something that's visually engaging. You can't just have walls of text. You can't just have bland colors. You want it to really pop. Videos are great. People will stop and they'll watch a reel, they'll watch a video. So I would think about the visuals that you're putting out there, and the more engaging and compelling you can make them, the more short form video content, the better. So if you can do some type of reel or something that's 10, 15, 30 seconds, I would try and find some way to get that type of content out. Second, I would say is that mobile first for sure. I don't know about many of you, but I don't spend a lot of time on Instagram on my laptop. I don't spend a lot of time on TikTok on my work computer. People are on their phones when they're on social media. And so you want to make sure that your ads are optimized, that you're thinking first about what's the mobile experience of this ad? What size should it be? What does the page look like on a mobile phone when they land there? I would make sure that you're considering that. And then number 3 is just experiment with different ad creatives. So it might be that you're testing 2 different ads or 2 different keywords or a variation of a video, but it might also be that you're testing old content with newer content. Just because something worked a month ago or 6 months ago or a week ago, it doesn't mean that it's the best ad. So you constantly want to be trying out new variations of content to keep it fresh. And then you can stack them up against each other and see which one is delivering the highest return. So always be, they call it A/B testing. You want to be A/B testing your content constantly. Okay, so let's talk about outreach. This might be one that some of you are a little more familiar with, probably even some of you as much as I am. So this is my personal favorite way to drive client intakes, because if you can build a business around outreach, it's going to be more consistent and it's going to be more affordable as time goes on, because it's going to pay dividends over time. Whereas Google ads are transactional. You're feeding Google $20 and they give you a lead. You're feeding it $20, they give you a lead. Whereas when you build relationships that are on respect and trust, and you've earned that business and you've shown good clinical efficacy and they're referring families to you, it pays dividends over time. And they want to send families to you, not because obviously you're paying them, which we don't do, but because they trust you. And so there's not a huge expense in this. It's maintaining that relationship. So it also means that you're doing something right. If people are consistently referring families to you, you're not just doing something right in marketing, but you're doing something right as a business and as a clinician. And so I think it speaks volumes into the businesses that can survive and build off of referrals. Those are the ones that really have something great going. So I like to think of outreach in 2 buckets. First is community outreach. But second, most importantly for me, is the referral networks. But I think of it in 2 buckets. Community outreach involves participating in events that bring you face-to-face with potential clients and their families. So whenever you're the immediate contact person, it's a one-to-one. And referral building focuses on relationships with people who can refer you to others. And so that's more of that third party. So I think of it in those 2 buckets. When I'm thinking about community outreach, like I said, this is about getting involved in your local community, making your practice visible, getting your brand out there, establishing trust with potential clients directly and their families. One of the most effective ways that you can do this is by participating in things like local events. So think about like walk runs, holiday celebrations, charity events. Maybe it's at a local religious organization that you're affiliated with, just trying to get out there in the community. These are great opportunities to connect because it's in a relaxed environment, in a formal setting, maybe people that you're familiar with, that you can you already have some of that built-in trust and reputation with them. And you can set up things like a booth, or you can provide, a resource event. You can get your name out there. So that's what this is about. And then also what you can do is, if you have a center, you can host your own events. It's another good approach. I mean, you can do open houses. If you have a center where you can invite the community into your space, you can allow them to see what you offer firsthand, meet you, like I said, in person, getting that trust factor. When somebody sees your face and hears your voice, it establishes that trust, that understanding of somebody that you can there's a lot of trust required when you're trusting that person with your child, especially a child, like I said, with special needs, like a parent of a child. Like, it's hard because sometimes they can't advocate for themselves. So trust is so important, that you're leaving your child in the hands of this person. And so when you're meeting them in person, face to face, it does go a long way, and it means a lot. The other thing I would say is, don't underestimate the impact of speaking opportunities. So if you have an opportunity to speak at a school or a parent group or a local organization or a religious affiliation, I would try and find those opportunities to get your name out there. It's a great resource for those families and for those individuals, but also it's just, again, a good way to build yourself up in the community. Right, let's see. So referral networks, again, this is the one that I think more about personally, the one that I'm the strongest advocate of. And referral networks are all about building trusted relationships, keyword being trusted relationships with professionals and organizations that can directly refer clients to you into your practice. So by focusing on these connections, you're going to create a reliable, ideally reliable stream of referrals that can help your practice grow over time. So this isn't going to happen overnight. You're not just going to call somebody or show up and they're just going to start handing you referrals. It's something that you're building that trust over time, and you're really investing into this process. First, it's important to identify who your key referral sources are. So a lot of these are probably top of mind for you, but it's the pediatricians, your diagnosticians, your school systems, your daycare, your insurance providers, your social workers, your ancillary therapists, your fellow ABA providers. It's anybody that's coming in contact with families who might be speaking about a thought or a concern or a need or a wait list or whatever it might be. Those are the people that you want to be building those relationships, those networks with. Next, I would say focus on establishing and maintaining these relationships. So once you have them, it's not enough to just reach out to them one time. You want to maintain these. So you can do this through in-person visits. I've seen it be highly effective, though. It doesn't have to be in person. I've seen it be highly effective through phone outreach, through emails, through virtual meetings like this one. While it's maybe not as strong as in person, there's a connection that we're making here, even virtually, where it's different if I were to talk to you about something versus somebody that you've never met before. There's some type of connection that we've had here, and that's true as well in community outreach. So you can still build those relationships virtually. So I wouldn't just assume that, hey, I don't have time to be driving all over the place. Like, pick up the phone, send an email, schedule a Zoom. Those things are still very, very effective. I've seen them work, certainly. A couple tips here: whenever you're reaching out to different contacts, like a diagnostician, a pediatrician, case managers, etc., I would say it helps to have a template or script ready to go. So for some of you, this is going to be totally new. A lot of the clinicians I've worked with, this was probably their least favorite part of some of the work that they do, it because it feels a little salesy sometimes, or they feel uncomfortable. I would say have a guide, have a template, have something that you can kind of fall back on. It doesn't have to be word for word, but have something where you can keep it tight. You can have an email, an in-person elevator pitch, a script that you go off of for the first sentence or two whenever you're reaching out to people, just to make sure that you're hitting those key points. So I would say have something at your side or available to you. But again, it doesn't have to feel rigid. It doesn't have to feel generic. It's just a good thing to try and tailor it out a little bit to meet, each individual need of that message. So if you have a background in working with schools or older populations, or if you're one of the few people on here who take TRICARE, if we still have anybody on here who takes TRICARE, talk about that. Give them a reason to share their information with their family. So if you can have a niche in that area, again, if it's TRICARE, or if it's older populations, or if it's center-based services, and maybe there's not a lot of centers around, like, talk about that one thing. That way you're in the option of, if they're handing out 3 brochures to a family, because they should be giving out options to those families, you want to be a reason to be an option, something that makes you a little bit different, that family might need that specific thing. Let's see, tip 2, I would say my suggestion is not to jump right into asking for referrals. So the key to building a meaningful long-term relationship, keyword again being like relationship here, is to lead with value. So you always want to consider your audience. So whether it's a school system, a doctor's office, an insurance provider, talk to them about what they need and how you plan to help their families. So again, if they get a lot of TRICARE families or Medicaid families, or, it was really challenging for my son once he hit that school age. It was hard for him to find full-time services that he might need. Talk to them about those things that make you unique, because they might have families that are coming to them that they're telling them no a lot, or they're sending them somewhere else, or they wish they could help but they can't. And if there's something that you can offer to them to be an aid to them or to assist them in some way, talk about those things that make you stand out. And you might also even just start with building your own network by knowing where your own gaps are. This can be a great way to build those relationships. So if you get a lot of intakes from families that don't yet have a diagnosis, I know that was super common. A lot of our intakes were people who, maybe it was a grandparent, or maybe it was somebody who thought that their child had a diagnosis, but they were going through the process, or they got something from a school, but it wasn't from a diagnostician technically. Build relationships with diagnosticians or child psychologists, or have a place that you can send those families to, instead of just telling them, no, sorry, we don't do that, or first step is you get a diagnosis. Have some place that you can send them. Build that relationship with that diagnostician where those families have a soft handoff and they feel like they're still being taken care of. And what that might do is, if you give them great service and you're still that guide for them, even though you weren't the immediate service, they're going to remember that. They're going to say, oh, that was actually step 2 is coming to you. Let me go over this diagnostician, get that done. And then I'm going to come back to you because you did such a great job. And I felt so strongly that you really cared about me and my child, and you didn't just turn us away, like you helped us still. So I would start with building out those relationships, even where your own gaps are, if possible. On the screen, what I would say is this doesn't apply directly to ABA, but this is the general step-by-step of what's in a good sales pitch. So I know it's kind of weird thinking about it like a sales pitch, but outreach can feel a little bit pitchy. The one thing that I just wanted to call out on this is that step 1 is not you telling them everything about yourself. Step 1 is identifying the problem or the need. And then you go into the additional steps where you talk about your value. You share maybe your story, how you started your practice, or why you do what you do. Then you talk about, so you kind of go through that. But step 1 is the most important, where you're not picking up the phone, you're not calling somebody, telling them what you need. You're talking to them about why you're reaching out to them, as far as like how you plan to assist them or the families that they serve. All right, step 3, I would say, is consistency. I think this one, again, is maybe obvious, but often overlooked. So what you want to do is you want to find a way to stay organized, keep detailed notes of all of your efforts. So whether you're using a CRM, Excel, something like that, what I would say is just make sure that you are being consistent. You have detailed notes about who you spoke with, when you talked to them, what you talked about, and when you need to follow up next. It's really important is that you are following up when you said you were going to, if they asked for that. I'm going to kind of skip through a couple of these a little quicker. I know we're low on time. I want to make sure I have time for the Q&A. So tip 4, I would just say, is don't forget about ABA organizations. I am going to hit on this one because it's so big. I hear a lot of practices saying that I've called everyone. I've talked to the diagnosticians and the pediatricians, and they never mention other ABA providers. There is a lot of opportunity here. So if you are in-home exclusively and there's somebody who's center-based exclusively, partner with them. Talk about how you can help each other when you get those intakes that you can't service. How do you hand them off to somebody? Or maybe they do or don't take Medicaid and you're the opposite. Or maybe they serve older or younger populations and you do the opposite. Or I'm in St. Louis, Missouri, but 15 minutes away from me is St. Louis, Illinois. Maybe they don't cross that state line. So maybe if your guys' businesses are kind of right on the cusp of each other, talk to those providers and talk about, hey, can I refer these families that are coming to me that I can't service? I need a place to send them. So build those relationships too. I wouldn't overlook those. Let's see. The last thing I would say is, after everything we just talked about, tracking your efforts. I'm going to kind of go through this one a little quickly. I apologize, but I won't leave time for the Q&A. There are plenty of ways to track your efforts, so I would not overlook this. This is where it gets a little technical, but there are tons of tools here. There's Google Analytics. There's the Search Console. There are paid tools like SEMrush and Ahrefs and Moz, and Screaming Frog, I think, is actually free. This allows you to track your SEO efforts to see where you rank for certain keywords, how much traffic your website is getting, et cetera. Paid ads, obviously, you have the Google Ads Manager, your Facebook Ads Manager, Analytics, and then marketing or emailing. We talked about MailChimp. There's also Constant Contact. So I'll just run through those quickly. What I would say for this is, some of this might be a little technical for everybody out there. If you struggle with this, there are very affordable contractors on places like Fiverr that might charge you just $100 or something like that to set this stuff up for you. So if you know that you need the tracking, but you're not sure about how to do it yourself, take a look at something like a Fiverr. There's tons of marketing professionals on there who just do contract work on the side, and they can set up your analytics, your Google Search Console, and it'll just send you the information. It's not technical. Once it's all done, it's easy to look at. So I'd keep that in mind. I'm going to go ahead and skip through this. It's just kind of talking more about, I'll leave this up on the slide that we can see it, but these are the main things that you should be trying to track for those different opportunities or for those different efforts that we talked about. So whether it's SEO, paid ads, et cetera. So I'll leave that in the slide deck when I send it out, but those are some of the main things that I would suggest looking for when tracking your efforts. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up for Q&A. I'll try and answer as many questions as I can. Let me go to the Q&A sections and see if there's anything new. And sorry if you guys were typing in there as I was going. I apologize if I missed it. Let's see. So one of the questions says, between paid ads, SEO, and doctor outreach, but I'm just going to call that outreach in general, which drives the most clients? Which one should we spend the majority of our time and money on? I think it's a great question. The easiest answer for me is that you don't want to live in a world where you are beholden to paid ads. That is not a good place to be. That is not you writing your own story. That is tomorrow Google doubles the price and oh no. So I would not be in a world where it's like, I'm going to have a business and I'm just going to pay Google. I'm going to get a lot of leads. It's going to be fantastic. I wouldn't do that, but I also wouldn't not do ads. So what I would say, if I'm starting out a business, or if I'm small to medium size, if I'm not like a Blue Sprig or something like that, if I'm kind of getting started, what I would say is I would start with outreach. I would build those referral networks, and I would do that as much as possible. I would start with places that I have any connection with. So maybe it's like a complementary like ABA provider, like I said, where you kind of are yin and yang. I would start there. I would be reaching out to insurance providers and case managers and caseworkers to talk to them about, hey, I don't have a wait list, which some of these people do. I take this insurance that obviously you guys have. Here's some of the work that I've done in the past in clinical efficacy to showcase, what I've done. I would do outreach is what I would do first. And when I say outreach, again, I mean referral networking outreach. I wouldn't probably start with like going to like the walk runs and things like that. Those can get super expensive. I would do the things that you can do at a low cost, which is building a referral network and then some of your SEO. I would, even for the easiest one, I would say Google My Business. So if you're talking like lowest hanging fruit, it's going to be Google My Business and building a referral network. After that, I would say the more complex SEO. And then after that, I would say getting out and doing some paid outreach. And then after that, I would say getting on the paid ads like Google, social media. That's going to be just like the gravy on top. Paid ads is the supplement to fill the gaps and the cracks. It shouldn't be the main bread and butter of how you're getting your leads. If so, you're going to be in a very expensive place for your ads. Let's see. Can you show the sales pitch slide again? I will send, like I said, I'll send out the slide deck. And I'll try and also, if anyone wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'd be happy to share any insights, any thoughts, be happy to kind of give you some pointers or tips about what you're sending out versus what I've done in the past as well. But I will send out the slide deck and I will send out this recording and I'll have that sales pitch slide on it. Is there a general rule of thumb for how often to post on social media platforms weekly? I would say it kind of depends on your availability. So if you're kind of a sole proprietor, you got like a million things going on, I would just find something consistent that you can reliably keep up with. I would say probably once a week is probably not enough. Even then, I'd probably say try and do it 2 times a week. If you are like a marketing person, I would say you should be posting very regularly, but I'm assuming a lot of us out here probably aren't marketing professionals, which is why you're here. I would say 2 things. One, I would say try and do it at least twice a week. And do it consistently. It shouldn't be random at all different days of the week and all different times and you just thought of something and you posted it. I would have a content calendar. Your audience should know, hey, they post on Sundays and they post on Thursdays or whatever that might be. Something consistent that fits into your schedule. It's recurring and it's something that you can easily manage. So I would say shoot for 2. If right now you're not posting anything, I think that's a good goal. What's the name of the book? The name of the book is Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. You can also find some of it online as far as like the Foursquare, the diagram. There's a lot of people that do discussions of it on like YouTube where they talk about it. So if you want to see like a condensed version, maybe just check out YouTube, look for Building a Story Brand. I've seen a lot of people talk about it. But the book has the real deal walkthroughs where he goes through everything and it's really engaging. So even if you're not a big book person, it's written in very casual language like we're talking today. It's a very easy read, so I would suggest taking a look at it. What are your thoughts about outreach in parent Facebook support groups? Um, I would say kind of read the room. Maybe if there's an admin of it, maybe ask them their thoughts on it. I probably wouldn't just jump in with a pitch like, hey, we're now enrolling XYZ, but maybe start again with leading with value. If there's a parent support group that you're open to leading, or if there's an open house play activity or something, or if you're going to be up at the local library and you're going to be, it's a coloring activity or some fine and gross motor skill, like I would just find something that's like a reason for them, a reason for you to share something rather than just kind of jumping in and selling stuff all the time. And maybe if you do it every once in a while, it's okay, but I would be cautious not to kind of spam their groups and kind of deteriorate the main purpose of that support group. But if one of the big purposes is if you see people asking, trying to find services, how do I find somebody? I would jump in with a private message and just say, hey, I saw that you had this concern. I'm a PCBA or a practitioner, something like that. I'd be happy to do a free consultation for you. I think that's okay if they're directly asking for support there. What's the name of the other resources you mentioned along with Canva? That was for emailing, and that was MailChimp. So you can use like a MailChimp or a Constant Contact. I use Canva for artwork though. So if you're talking about artwork, Canva's free and it's like the premier tool. I would say that and it's point and drag or click and drag kind of tool. So it's extremely powerful, but it's also very easy. So I feel confident that anyone in this chat could use Canva. And like I said, it's free. So I would do that. What email marketing tools do you recommend? I have exclusively used MailChimp. That's the one that I'm most familiar with. I've also done some marketing through CRM systems. So I've used Salesforce, I've used HubSpot, I've used Zoho. They all have their pluses and minuses. I would say for emailing, HubSpot's probably best, if not a direct marketing tool. HubSpot's a CRM that does emailing. But you also have like direct emailing tools like a MailChimp. So I would say maybe like a MailChimp or Constant Contact. But if you need a CRM, I would say HubSpot. This might be the first time I've ever said this, but previously HubSpot was not HIPAA compliant. I looked it up earlier today and they sent out a press release in June of some time this year that they now meet HIPAA compliance. So I haven't had enough time to look through all of that. So I would say do your own due diligence there, but it sounds like HubSpot is now HIPAA compliant as a CRM and you could use it for your emailing as well as what it looked like to me online today. Are there any podcasts you recommend related to ABA marketing? I have not seen any podcasts related to that topic. It might be something that would be very interesting if there was one. I'll tell you what, I will look around, see if I can find one. And if so, I'll include it in an email, just generally with some additional support links and things like that. So I'll go out and take a look, see if I can find anything. And if so, I will share it with you all. Do I have a podcast? I should. No, I don't. So that's kind of a good segue. What I would say is that I'm creating this. This is one part of a greater webinar series, I guess, podcast or whatever you want to call it. I call it a webinar series. I'm calling it Outside the Session. So it's not just going to be this one and done marketing session. So I'm going to have professionals on here who are specifically professionals in the ABA space, but their expertise is in HR, law, accounting, finance, real estate. So I'm going to have a recurring series roughly every 2 or 3 weeks. The next one I have coming up is September 24th at 11 a.m. Central with Robin Rodriguez. She is the owner of Her HR Help Desk, and that topic is going to be HR challenges for ABA owners. So if you want to register to that one, you can go to AlohaABA.com. And if you go to our resources tab, you'll see webinars. And you'll see that one is up and live where you can register it. Again, it's September 24th. And then following that, I have the formal chief counsel for CARD, who's going to be talking about different ABA specific law things. So maybe if it's about like going through like a HIPAA compliance audit or the legal documents that you need to start your own practice, we're going to be talking about a lot of those things. So have I ever used a social media planner? I just use just a general, I don't use like a paid tool or anything. I just create a little calendar. I write those items in my calendar and then I go through that. You can also like just natively on the business manager for Facebook and Instagram. I think it's like business.facebook.com or something like that. There's a social media planner tool where you can go in and plan out your post ahead of time. So, I mean, you could prep out a month or farther if you wanted to, and you can set a date and time, what it's going to say, what the image looks like. That way, if you want to post on Sundays, you don't have to work on Sundays. I mean, you can do whatever you want, or if you want to make sure that it says, Happy 4th of July to everybody, you can set that to do that, in June or in March or whenever you want to. So you can just use the native social media planner tool there, but I haven't used any other paid tools, no. What's your feel about when doctors want you to pay for lunch for their team, but then they only give you 5 minutes? Personally, that's why I lean more towards virtual. I've seen it be so successful that I would just lean towards that. I don't think that it should be something where you're expected to pay for people's lunches. Maybe you bring in like bagels or something small and it's not expected, but you do it because it's fun and it's nice and it's the type of person you are. But it should never feel like you owe them lunch or you owe them something in order to have their time. That's actually just bad practice. It's kind of a kickback, really. Might be a small level, and might be kind of weird saying that out loud, but it should not feel like you owe them something so they will consider giving you a referral. It should be about the families, is what it should be about. It shouldn't be about that. And then, in fact, there are some doctors out there who actually, if you're bringing in them meals and food, they might actually reject those meetings because then they have to document it, they have to write it down, they have to submit it for their evaluations and their audits, saying that they received this dollar amount and this food from somebody. So I would just try and avoid it unless it's like something really small, like a bagel or some coffee or something like that. Do you recommend hiring somebody to create a good website before advertising? I would. I think it's your digital storefront. It doesn't have to be a $10,000 website. I would start with, like I said, Fiverr. I've seen good people on Fiverr that can do it relatively inexpensively. You also get to see their kind of like their examples of their body of work. So you can see their portfolios and see websites that they've created before. So you can kind of get a feel for them. But if you've not created websites before, I would say that it probably hurt you if you made something that didn't represent your business as well, as that didn't match the level of clinical professionalism that you show. If your marketing doesn't meet that same level of professionalism, I'd probably hire somebody to come in and do it for you. And like I said, you could probably find somebody on Fiverr who can be a little bit best of both worlds, where they can do it probably at a much higher level from a marketing standpoint than maybe you could do on your own. And they're also not going to break the bank. So I would check that out before you start to spend a lot of time on it, because it can get very technical very quick and it's complex. Brochures or flyers? I would do flyers if you're emailing, and I would do brochures if you're dropping them off. I would not email somebody a brochure because it gets complicated which column goes with which area. So I would just mainly do flyers. And again, nobody's going to read through 10,000 words on a front back 3-fold brochure. I would keep it very light, very skimmable, hit the highlights, think of the hero's journey, do a flyer if you can, but a brochure if necessary. But either way, I would keep it skimmable and to the point and punchy. With which social media platform is most important to create content for? I would try and think of your user. So for me, my audience, obviously, I'm trying to reach out to professionals. I would say LinkedIn's big for me. But if you're providing services to parents, maybe LinkedIn isn't where you're going to meet them. So I would say probably right now it's probably Instagram. TikTok is probably on the edge. I don't know. There's a lot of people on TikTok, but I don't know, like the demographic is starting to be probably more in your age range. So what I would say is, like, find what the age range that you find you're supporting is, and then you can easily find like which of those demographics use which platforms. I would say that Facebook is probably going to be, I'm 35, I still use Facebook, so I would say it's probably going to be my age group and older. Instagram is probably also going to be my age group, and then probably younger, so I would say 40 and under. I would say even in older age ranges, you're still going to get a lot of more females that are on Instagram, which a lot of the moms, I can say for my family at least, it's typically a lot of the moms that I see that are filling out a lot of these contact forms. Certainly you get fathers as well. You get a range of every single person. Parents are trying to take care of their children, but in general, I would say I've seen a higher percentage from females. So I would say if I had to pick one, I'd pick Instagram is what I would go with. Age range. Okay. Age range. The age range of parents matters. TikTok. Yeah. So that's kind of what somebody's saying there. I would agree with that generally. I would say if you're hitting Instagram primarily for sure, then I would go TikTok and then maybe Facebook after that. It's easy to post on Facebook and Instagram at the same time though, because you can use one tool to post to both. All right. I appreciate everyone for staying back. I'm happy to stay on and answer more questions. So if anyone, obviously, if you want to leave, feel free. I'll be sending out the recording and the slide deck, but if anyone wants to keep shooting me questions, I'm happy to stay on if anybody wants to. Between Facebook ads and Google ads, how should we split our marketing spend? I think that goes out to testing. I would say, kind of like, being behavior analyst and seeing what the data says. I would say as a marketing person, we also see what the data says. I would start with small budgets on both. I would test out your ad copy, and then I would see which one is providing the best results to you. One thing, I wish this wouldn't have been 5 minutes too late. I hope there's still a good amount of people on here. One thing is you have to give it enough time. So I wouldn't run ads for a week, see which one works best, and throw all of your money into that. You're going to want to give this at least like 90 days for sure. You're going to want to do a few months of both of them, spend a little bit of time refining things, but you also don't want to be changing everything all at once. So think about it again. I'm not a clinician at BCBA, but I can imagine this would translate over into the world. You don't want to be trying a ton of different programming and a bunch of different goals all at one time and different antecedents. And like all of these things are just going to get confusing. You're not going to know which data applies to what thing. So I would say like you want to try something, you want to try an ad and let it run for a little while. Give it time to optimize, give it time to work, see what's happening. And then after you've got a little bit of data that you trust, then tweak one little thing, not everything all at once, just tweak one thing, tweak your heading, tweak your budget, tweak the location of the ad, tweak the picture, just one thing. That way, that that's the variable of what is or is not working. So I would say it's okay to do both at the same time, but I would just do small budgets on each and then test them against each other. And then that'll give you the answer of which one's most effective for you. I don't think that I missed any questions. It seems to be slowing down as well. So I'll hang back for just another minute or so. And if anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to answer. Appreciate it. Happy to help. Thanks for joining. Okay, I think that might be all the questions I've got. So if there's nothing else, I will just say that thank you everyone again for joining. Also, thank you for the work that you do for families like mine and for others. Greatly appreciated. Can't thank you enough. I'll be sending out the recording. I'll be sending out the slide decks. I also will send out a few links, like I said, to some of the other outside the session topics. Again, it's going to be on HR. It's going to be on legal policies. It's going to be on finance. So I'll send out some of those as well. If anyone's interested, be happy to have you all join that as well. So thank you again, everyone, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.